When people first find out about the connection between nutrition and lifestyle and genetics, I often get asked three questions. The first one is usually, what information can I find out from my genetics? The second question is, well, how can I use that information to help with my health and wellness and vitality? And three, really, is there enough research behind all of this to show that this actually works? And so today, we're going to take a quick dive into a genetic report and answer that first question. Basically, what will I find out in a genetic report? So first off, I just kind of want to go into why I use this particular report. It is from a company called 3x4 Genetics. It is the most comprehensive genetic test that I've found, and it is a polygenic report, meaning that they don't just look at one individual gene variant and give recommendations. They have an algorithm that is very good that sort of compiles multiple gene variations and completes a picture as to how those gene variants can affect your individual risk in certain areas. And so they do a really good job of this. They also stay up to date on the research and post it often. And so that's very helpful for me as a practitioner to stay on top of the latest information. They update their reports often as well to ensure that the latest information is represented. And if you have done a report through them, you can always get an updated report without having to redo the cheek swab test. So that is why I use this report. So basically what they do is they take different areas of systems within your body and take the genes that are a part of those systems, and then they compile that information and determine, based on the information, whether you are at a low risk, which is sort of that olive green color. So they color code everything, and they'll color code the low risk gene variants with that olive green color. A medium risk means that there is a little bit of risk there, but it's not, probably may not be impacting you a whole lot, is in that teal color. The purple color is high risk, and then the maroon color is a very high risk. So when I look at these reports and I start working with somebody, I really hone in on the very high and the high risk, because this is where you're going to see the biggest impact in these areas if you make some changes. So on the next page of the report, it's just a basic table of contents. It just gives you a summary of what's coming up in the next few pages. Next up in the report is basically, this is a summary that 3x4 Genetics puts together based on your genetic variation. So the algorithm spits out what the top 3 pathways are that you should focus on for your health. And this, again, is identified by an algorithm. This is without any personalization or information from you. So this is without knowing you at all. And this is where I can come in and look at all the info and take into consideration your lifestyle, your health history, what your current goals are, and any complaints and concerns that you might have. So we really dive into your genetic info to come up with a all-inclusive plan for you based on sort of where you're at and what your needs are. And sometimes this particular info is where we start, this summary plan that they print out, but then sometimes it's not. It just kind of depends on where your needs are, what you're looking for, what symptoms or concerns that you have, and what your unique needs are. And these are also general recommendations that they give out. They're not specific to you. They're not taking into account any personal lifestyle needs that you have, or anything that that you're really going to do, and any changes that you're really going to make and be consistent with in your life. And that's where I would come in and be able to give you that um, more personalized approach, and really hone in on some recommendations that you can use. The next pages are a gene summary. So this page may not mean a whole lot to you, but this is kind of where I go to first, and I look at the overall patterns that I see, and this is kind of where I use these patterns within your genes to know where I can start to dive a bit deeper into your unique strengths and any potential weaknesses that you might have. And so basically, they categorize again these genes in colors. And so you do have protective genes, and these are represented in this gray box up here. They will have a little shield by them. And basically, these are genes that um, are there to protect you. So they have a bit of a protective benefit above what the normal function of the gene is. So this is a positive thing. And most people don't have very many of them. Usually there's anywhere between 3 and 5. So don't freak out if you don't have very many listed. There's usually only a handful of the protective genes. Next, we have the no impact genes, which basically means that these genes are functioning normally. They're doing what they're supposed to do. They're doing their job, going about their business normally. You have these low impact genes that are in this olive green color, yellow color. Again, these are you have a slight variation in the gene, but it's most likely not impacting your health in a major way. Medium gene variants are medium risk, and so a little bit more risk than the low, could possibly have health impact, or may not at all. This is where this medium ones in particular is where we can kind of look a bit deeper if we're really trying to dig deep to find out what's going on. But really the high and the very high, so the purple and the maroon these are going to have the biggest impact on your health. So this next page is sort of where we start to see first look at the pathways that are covered within the report, and we'll see these same categories or pathways throughout the rest of the report. They've been just basically in different layouts. They summarize them in different layouts, but I will touch on each of these categories or pathways as we go through the rest of the report. This is just basically a summary, so you can kind of get a snapshot of where your biggest impacts are going to be. So through the different pathways. And anywhere that you're going to see, again, the maroon color or the purple color are areas that we probably want to dive into a little bit and see if there's something that we can do to make some nutrition and lifestyle changes. So the first pathway is the cellular system. Now, if there are any maroon or purple areas here in the cellular systems which show up as high impact, then this is where we need to start first. This is where you need to fix everything on a cellular level initially. And once we kind of get that cleaned up and figured out, then we can move on to the other pathway systems. But this is where we'll kind of look first. So basically, every cell in your body has function, and every cell in your body functions independently of each other. So think like a small apartment or office space in a high-rise building. Each unit takes care of its own day-to-day maintenance, but ultimately it contributes to the overall success and function of the building as a whole. So very similarly, every cell in your body has its own mechanism in place to clean, protect, and maintain the health for the whole body and all of its organs. Now, these are four distinct pathways that this report looks at. And first of all, we'll start with methylation up here at the very top. And this might be a new word for you. You may not have heard of methylation, but methylation is basically the biochemical process of making sure every cell is functioning optimally. Methylation is not responsible for how we repair genetic material, but also how we make energy, respond to stress, handle inflammation, how well our cells detoxify, and how our brain chemistry works. Methylation is the process involved in actually turning genes on or off, and we may be able to reduce our risk of developing certain diseases and some types of cancers by optimizing methylation. So methylation is very, very important. And if you have any genetic variants that are risk factors up here, we definitely something that we need to trigger in on and look at. Inflammation is next. I think most people have heard of inflammation. Inflammation is a normal automatic immune response to injury, irritation, or infection. So like when you bump your toe and it becomes swollen, that is the inflammatory response working to speed up healing. Sometimes injuries or irritations are internal. So in places like your gut, your muscles, your joints, or your blood vessels. Inflammation is protective by design, but can become destructive if it's left unchecked. So long-term chronic inflammation can eventually lead to conditions like arthritis, eczema, irritable bowel syndrome, autoimmune conditions, and many, many, many other diseases. Next, we have oxidative stress. So oxidative stress is the human equivalent of like rust on your car. So if you think about a car rusting, that's what oxidative stress is. The impact of all exposures over time results in damage to our cells. Unmanaged oxidation can impact our energy levels, memory, premature aging, and sometimes cancer risk. In a healthy functioning cell, enzymes that counteract oxidative damage, or sort of a rust block, so to speak, are made. The ability to make those enzymes is determined by certain genes. A good diet and lifestyle can aid towards a lower oxidative burden and help maintain the health of your cells. And finally, your detoxification. Detoxification is the body's way of getting rid of toxins that could otherwise build up and interfere with health. Signs of poor detoxification include lethargy, fatigue, difficulty concentrating, and unexplained aches and pains in the body. The liver is the main site of whole body detox, but every cell has its own toxics eliminating process that keep it clean, healthy, and working well. Detoxification can be optimized by making the right diet and lifestyle changes to support good cellular cleaning process. So this is definitely the most complicated area. There's lots of things that can go awry within these systems, and so these are big heavy hitters. And really, if you're having any kind of chronic problems or issues, this is most likely where we would look first to try and see if there's some nutrition, lifestyle, stress management, things like that, changes that we can make. Next up, we have the systems and the cardiovascular overview. So we're going to kind of go clockwise here. So we're going to start with the mood and behavior section. So of course, it's normal for our mood to change depending on situations, but sometimes our emotional state leads to changes in behavior that affect our ability to deal with daily routines. Genetics affects our ability to manufacture and balance chemicals in the brain that are necessary to manage mood, anxiety, depression, addiction, and related behaviors. In addition, diet and lifestyle choices impact brain chemicals and may require adjustments. So mood and behavior is strongly correlated to your genetics, and which which genes you have and which are expressing and not can change basically the chemicals in your brain that affect your mood. So the next category is memory and brain health. The brain is the control center of the body, and keeping it healthy is crucial for overall mental and physical health. Apart from regulating all of your hormones and other biological processes, the brain is also responsible for cognitive function, including attention, focus, learning capacity, and memory. Brain health and function tend to decline with age, but at a faster rate in individuals with certain genetic variations. And these genetic variations can definitely be influenced by diet and lifestyle changes. So, good diet, good healthy lifestyle for you can be a pro, and the opposite is also true. So there's lots of changes that we can make in this area to improve if we're seeing some cognitive decline or memory issues. Histamine overload is the next section here, the third one down. Histamine is a chemical that is involved in immunity and removal of allergens from the body. It also helps with digestion and is released in response to injury and toxins. Histamine can be made by bacteria in the gut, but it is also present in certain foods. Genes regulate enzymes that are responsible for histamine breakdown. Inefficient breakdown may result in a histamine overload and cause symptoms like migraines, flushing, dizziness, skin rashes, and hives. Nutrition changes as well as lifestyle alterations can help if you have trouble with histamine breakdown and you're having any of these symptoms. Hormone balance is next. Hormones are chemical messengers. They instruct organs and systems in the body on how to function. The main female hormones include estrogen and progesterone. These are necessary throughout the life cycle for the regulation of most major female-related bodily processes, including puberty, fertility, pregnancy, and menopause. Androgens are also present in women, but to a lesser degree. The main male hormones are known as androgens, which include the powerful male hormone testosterone. Androgens are necessary throughout the life cycle for the regulation of major male-related bodily processes like puberty, fertility, and andropause. Estrogen also presents in men, but to a lesser degree. Ineffective hormone metabolism can contribute to many conditions. Genes, as well as diet and lifestyle factors, regulate the activation and breakdown of these particular hormones. So glucose and insulin are up next. It's the very bottom of the page there. And this is just basically blood sugar control. So our cells run on glucose, a simple sugar obtained from the food we eat. Our bodies work hard to ensure the amount of glucose in the blood is kept at just the right level. High blood glucose is often associated with weight issues and diabetes, but chronically elevated blood sugar also has other effects such as accelerated aging and chronic inflammation, which we already heard about inflammation and how that's not, chronic inflammation is not a good thing at all, which underlie every chronic illness. Insulin is manufactured in the body and is used to regulate glucose levels. The way insulin and glucose do their job is determined by genes, and we can manipulate our diet and lifestyle choices to affect our blood sugar levels. So moving on to the next page here, we'll look at collagen and joints. So all of our cells are continuously being renewed by being broken down and replaced by new ones. Collagen is the major structural protein and the foundation of all of our soft tissue. So your skin, your hair, your nails, your joints, and your organs. Variation in collagen genes might affect the structure and function of these areas. Excessive breakdown of cells without a comparable formation of new cells will result in degeneration. Genes play a large part in the process of collagen formation and breakdown, as does lifestyle factors like diet and exercise. Next up, bone health. So bone is made up of minerals, as many of you probably know, such as calcium and phosphorus. But these minerals are also used elsewhere in the body. And so your bone is constantly turning over these minerals in the breakdown or buildup of new bone cells. Gene variants may impact these processes and affect the balance of breakdown and buildup. Diet and lifestyle choices are needed, especially if you have variations in genes that cause this imbalance of bone breakdown and buildup. So blood pressure is up next. Blood pressure indicates how hard the heart is working in order to pump blood around the circulatory system and is used as a measure for confirming good health. High blood pressure can cause damage to blood vessels, delicate tissues in the organs and systems in the body. Genetic variance impacts the ability to contract and relax blood vessels and balance fluid volume within them. Some people have gene variants that make them very sensitive to salt and saturated fat, and if they eat too much of either, their blood pressure increases. And some people have no changes in blood pressure with these foods. So that's something very important to take note of. If you have high blood pressure, the first recommendation your doctor usually tells you is to reduce your salt. Well, that might work for some people, but it may not work for everybody. And you may be taking out all the salt out of your diet for no reason if you're somebody that is not sensitive to salt at all. So that's something that we can definitely find out in your genes. Veins and arteries make up a network in the body responsible for transporting oxygen and nutrients to our organs and systems and for removing waste. Having healthy blood vessels means maintaining their strength and flexibility. Loss of function makes them vulnerable to damage and disease. Certain genes determine how well our bodies protect the vascularity of our veins and arteries. Diet and lifestyle changes can help protect those who are at risk of increased damage to their vascular system. Next up, cholesterol. Cholesterol metabolism refers to processes that determine the distribution of lipids in the body. Fat binds to proteins that transport them in the bloodstream between organs. Different forms of fat particles have important roles to play as part of cell membrane structures and as precursors for hormones. Suboptimal cholesterol process may result in an imbalance in the accumulation and breakdown of fats in the bloodstream, which most commonly leads to cardiovascular diseases like heart disease and strokes. Certain genes play a large role in how well your body processes, metabolizes, and stores cholesterol. Each gene variant has a very different solution to help improve cholesterol levels, so it's important to know which gene is potentially expressing to cause an increase in cholesterol levels for you to be able to know which diet and lifestyle strategies will work the best. So, there's different genes that could be causing high cholesterol. There's certain genes that cause you to be a hyperabsorber, meaning you're absorbing the cholesterol that you eat far more than somebody else. You could be a hyperproducer, meaning that your liver is just making tons and tons and tons of cholesterol, so it really has no effect on how much you're eating. Your body's just making it. And so knowing this can definitely change what kind of recommendations that are given. It can also, if your doctor's trying to put you on a statin, it can also determine which type of statin is going to work for you. So that's another avenue, determining which type of drug is going to work the best for you based on your genes. And finally, blood clotting. Blood clotting is a survival mechanism designed to prevent uncontrolled bleeding. So thousands of years ago, in the caveman days, this would have been beneficial to keep you from bleeding to death. But today, that's not much of a risk. And the people who have this genetic variation that causes this increase in blood clotting are now at a risk for strokes, heart disease, and deep vein thrombosis. All right. So we will move on to metabolism and weight management. So this is what they call the energy overview section. And so this is just basically how your body your body's metabolism and how it processes the foods that you eat. So glucose is our main fuel source and what we make energy from. How we extract, absorb, burn, distribute, store, and waste um, this energy varies between individuals, partly because of genetic variation. People respond very differently to calories, exercise, fasting, fatigue, and so on. Hunger is also experienced very personally and with great variability. Knowing how you're hardwired to handle fat, food, and fitness can save you a lot of frustration and energy. These insights can be a powerful tool that enables you to work with your body, not against it, and to finally reach your health goals. So we'll go through these real quick. The first one is your appetite and your satiety. So basically, this is um, uh, how much food it takes to satisfy your hunger. So some people are very sensitive to the sensation of satiety or fullness, while others often overeat and take longer to register that they are full. We all experience hunger and fullness differently. Variations in our genes determine our appetite level and satiety. So it's basically your leptin, um, which is a hormone that it's your satiety hormone, so it tells you when you're full. And then there's also ghrelin, which is your hunger hormone. And so this hormone goes up when you're hungry. So and these are the two genes that are affected and can really tell a story about where your satiety level um, is at. And so then it can definitely affect our eating patterns, like our snacking habits, our binge eating, our serving sizes, our frequency of meals, etc. So some people just need more foods to get more volume of food to get rid of their hunger. So you can use what's basically volumetrics type of meal planning to help with this. And this is increasing lower calorie, high volume type of foods, high fiber, high protein that can help with the satiety if somebody does have an issue with that. The next section is pro-inflammatory fat. So fat cells are not just in an active storage compartment for excess weight. They are metabolically active messengers that control our energy levels. So they're not, fat isn't just sitting there hanging out, being fat and an energy source should we need it. It's actually sending out signals to the rest of your body. And these messenger molecules found in fat tissues secrete various pro and anti-inflammatory signals to manage inflammation. If there is excess fat tissue in the body, the inflammatory response can be disrupted, and these pro-inflammatory molecules will increase. So basically, the more fat, if you have this particular gene variation, the more fat you have, the more inflammation you are going to have in your body. And that inflammation is also going to make it harder for you to lose weight. So it's very important that if you do have this genetic variation to try and decrease those fat cells as much as you can, because they are causing inflammation in your body that is causing extra stress. So adipogenesis. Basically what this is the formation, storage, and release of fat cells by our genes. So these gene variations may be partly responsible for why some people find it easy to gain or lose weight compared to others, even though their diet and lifestyles are the same. How our fat cells release energy is determined by certain genes and their variations. Knowing how your fat cells are predisposed to store and release energy can empower you to make the right diet and lifestyle choices to suit you based on your genes. So basically, this is how easily that you can access the fat in your body to use it for energy. Some people with certain genetic variations just have a very difficult time tapping into those fat stores, which means that they're going to have a more difficult time losing weight. Now we have energy expenditure. And I didn't mention this, but this is kind of a good representation. All these pictures, they will change based on the impact risk. So this particular person, again, this is a sample report from the company. This is not a particular person. This is a sample report given. So I would never like post somebody's genetic information out there. It's a sample report. But so this particular person, their picture on their plate, or the food amount on their plate, is very small because they have very low appetites, and they get full very fast. But if this was a maroon or a purple color up here, the plate would be very full. The plate would be different on that person's report. Same with the pro-inflammatory fat here. You see a bunch of the inflammation on these larger fat cells, and that's because this is a higher risk for this person. If it was a lower risk, the fat cells would be much smaller. And the same with these down here, with the energy expenditure. Basically, this is just basically just when we think of metabolism, how many calories do you burn each day? How many calories do you need to function each day? And research has confirmed that people's response to exercise varies considerably. Some respond quickly to exercise, meaning they get fit fast and their body composition changes favorably, while others are less sensitive to exercise effects. A significant contributor to these differences in exercise is from your genetics. An individual's ability to mobilize stored body fat and burn it for exercise fuel is partly predisposed by certain genes. It is useful to understand the extent exercise may help in your weight loss or not. For people who do not have a strong exercise response, they may not hone on their diet or to maintain weight. So I kind of talked about both energy expenditure and exercise response here. So energy expenditure is your metabolism, how many calories you burn each day. It's going to be very different from person to person. Again, this picture will change. If this is somebody that was a high calorie burner, they'd be, the little person sitting would be farther up here. How well you respond to exercise is huge, right? So if you're somebody who's trying to lose weight or maintain your weight, and you're trying to use exercise to get there, this would be good information to know, right? So do you need to hone in more on your diet because you just can't tap into weight loss with exercise? This is a great gene here that's going to tell you that. And then weight gain and weight loss resistance is basically the summary of everything above. So how difficult is it for you to lose weight and how easy it is for you to gain it? So you can tell here, this person's trying to push this weight up. It's very difficult for them. So looking at this overall page here and all the genes that are involved, this person has a much harder time trying to lose weight and keep their weight under control than somebody with different gene variations would. So athletic response and recovery need, also a very interesting one. So this basically provides insights into how your body responds to training. So understanding the best training strategy for your body helps you train optimally while avoiding injury. Your potential for endurance and power-based sports performance provides insights to optimize and personalize your training program. And finally, knowing how your body recovers helps you train optimally and achieve your fitness goals in a sustainable way. So we'll start here with the training response, and this is basically how quickly you adapt and respond to and improve while you're training. So your genetic plays a significant role in influencing your baseline fitness level, as well as response to aerobic training. Your fitness level and training response can be measured as VO2 max, which is the maximum amount of oxygen you can use during intense exercise. The higher your VO2 max, the fitter you are. High VO2 max levels are associated with performance in endurance-based sports. So that's really good to know. So if you're really struggling to get better at something, you might be somebody who has a very low training response, meaning they don't adapt very quickly. meaning it takes them longer to improve their fitness level. The next boxes down here are your endurance and power based. And this basically looks at how you're set up genetically. Are you more prone to be successful in endurance and activity sports, or maybe more power-based activities and sports? People can be identified as being both, geared towards both, or they could be geared towards neither. It just depends on how your genetics are laid out. And this doesn't mean you shouldn't do one of these if you're not identified as being successful at it, but it's just a way of seeing which type of exercise or sport you may excel at from a genetic standpoint. So if you are, so endurance basically refers to activities where muscles are exercised at lower intensities for longer periods of time. So your genes play a role in determining how well you will respond to endurance-based activity, and can be used as a guide to optimize your exercise program to get the best results. Generally, this means that you have more slow twitch muscle fibers versus fast twitched. And this is really where we will excel at more steady state, long duration training. Whereas power refers to activities where muscles are exercised at high intensities for shorter periods of time. It is the product of force and the speed at which action is performed. Genetics plays a significant role in how a person's power capacity can improve following a strength and power-based training program. So you're going to have you're going to have more fast twitch muscles. You're going to be more successful at weight training, HIIT or high intensity interval training types, CrossFit, things like that, where you go for short bursts of power and then rest prior to going again. I do have to say, though, whether you're more inclined to be power-based or not, as we get older, we need to include more power-based type of training, meaning weightlifting, HIIT training, short bursts of speed, to keep our muscle mass. So that's important to pay attention to as we get older. The last two areas on here are your injury up here at the top, injury risk, and then recovery need. So injuries are caused by many internal and external factors. A torn tissue or chronic overuse of muscle, tendons, or ligaments does not affect everyone in the same way or necessarily result in injury. The combination of your body's makeup and genetics contribute to the development of injuries. Knowing your genetic determination risk for injury can help to manage and avoid these risks and help to adjust exercise, lifestyle, diet, and recovery routines accordingly. If you're more prone to injury, you will need more rest and recovery between activity sessions to avoid that injury. And if you remember when we talked about collagen in joints before, this plays a big part here. If you're genetically at risk for having low collagen and low elasticity of tendons and ligaments, you will have to increase your rest time to decrease your risk of injury. So if, in addition to proper rest and increased stretching, you also might need to supplement with some collagen to try and avoid injury. So another area along those same lines is recovery. Because exercise is a type of stress on the body, it is the good kind of stress, but it is a stress. Some level of wear and tear inevitably occur in muscles and tissues during and directly after a workout. This is how muscles grow. This is what you want to happen. So given the right recovery resources and building blocks, the body quickly repairs and rebuilds muscle and tissue back to healthy, normal state, ready for the next exertion. Without enough recovery time or resources, inflammation and oxidative stress, remember we talked about inflammation and oxidative stress back in the cellular system early on, can arise in the body and risk for tissue breakdown, injury, and pain increase. So some people just need more rest and recovery time between activities. These are people who genetically are more susceptible to increased inflammation and increased oxidative stress. So they just need more time to recover and be ready to go again. If they don't take that time, they not only increase the risk of injury, but they may also see a decrease in the gains or the progress from the exercise because you need the proper amount of rest and recovery for your body to build muscle or get faster. So this is great information to know if you're somebody who's training and you are at risk of injury and you need more recovery time, then you need to take that. Otherwise, you're going to get hurt and you're going to be out for a while, or all this hard work that you're putting in is not going to mean anything because your body is not able to repair and rejuvenate itself and grow the muscle and increase the speed. So you're doing it for just nothing. So it's something definitely to pay attention to if you know that your genes are telling you that you need to slow down and take more time to recover. So these last few sections are the nutrients overview. So the vitamins and minerals and compounds we find in food are integral to keeping our body's process working optimally. They keep our cells robust, efficient, and healthy. They support the work of our genes and they help transport oxygen to tissues. Making the best choices means understanding how much we need of these nutrients and which foods we should choose. It also gives us insights into how we respond to certain nutrients. So this is really insightful because as we kind of go through this, we'll go through again counterclockwise, but you'll discover that, some people just need more of certain nutrients to make their body work properly. And that's just that. You just need to focus in on those foods and just because your body just isn't able to utilize and absorb the nutrients properly. And so it's just really great information to know. So we're going to start with caffeine. So caffeine up here at the very top. I think everybody knows that caffeine is used as a stimulant and it can help with alertness and cognitive performance in some people, but in other people, it can trigger anxiety and restlessness, irritability, and maybe even some nausea and definitely insomnia. And this is genetics, pure and simple. How fast you metabolize caffeine. And so in this particular person metabolizes it very, very quickly. So you see this huge, huge jump here. They eat or drink caffeine and it goes through their system very, very quickly, and then it's out. But if somebody is a slow caffeine metabolizer, then it's going to go all the way over here. So they're going to ingest that caffeine, and it's going to take hours and hours and hours and hours for it to leave the system. And so that's, good information to know, because if you're a slow metabolizer, then you definitely cannot have caffeine after 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon because you will still be metabolizing it by the time you need to go to bed, and then you're not going to sleep. And so the other important part about caffeine is the tie between caffeine, how fast you process caffeine, and heart disease. For those who are fast metabolizers of caffeine, caffeine does have a protective factor for the heart. But for those who are slow metabolizers of caffeine, it can actually have a detrimental effect on the heart, just simply because it stays in the system so long. And so that's something very interesting and good to know about whether you're somebody that can deal with large amounts of caffeine or maybe you can't. The next one we're going to look at is iron overload. Certain genes affect the body's ability to transport iron from tissue to the blood, so that excess iron can be excreted. Excessive iron accumulation within the tissues, known as hemochromatosis, is a condition that can result in the damage of organs, which can precipitate disease conditions such as diabetes, cancer, irregular heartbeat, and liver cirrhosis. So I don't see this very often, but if I do, I definitely recommend that they get a blood test to see if this is actually expressing within them and is an issue. Then we can focus on lower iron in the diet, talk about donating blood, etc., to kind of decrease those iron loads. Up next is fatty acids. They are the building blocks of fats and perform many important functions in the body. And they are a base for cell membranes, help make hormones, are involved in inflammation, brain function, and the immune system. So we definitely need fat, but people metabolize and process fat very, very differently. And based on your genes, I can tell you if you are someone who needs a low fat diet, especially saturated fat, or if you're someone who metabolizes fat very efficiently and may be able to have a more of a higher fat diet. So this is definitely determines whether someone will benefit from being on a ketogenic type of diet, which is a very, very high fat diet or not, or someone who is inefficient at metabolizing fat will have a very detrimental health effect from a ketogenic type of diet. So these genes are very tied closely to cardiovascular health, and in particular cholesterol metabolism. Up next is choline. Choline is a vitamin that plays an important role in the building of cell membranes. It is a key nutrient for healthy pregnancy, mood regulation, memory, and making new DNA. It is also involved in fat transport and supports methylation. Certain genes may affect the availability of choline and or increase your choline requirements. That it can also have oddly an effect in cholesterol levels with choline's role with the liver. So if you're somebody who does not utilize choline efficiently, then you are definitely at risk of increased cholesterol levels. And we need to make sure you increase your choline containing foods or possibly add a supplement because your choline needs are higher than someone who utilizes choline efficiently. Next up is folate. Folate is an essential vitamin that works together with all the B vitamins and plays a vital role in methylation. Remember we talked about methylation early on in the cellular system. It has a very, very important part of keeping your body running healthily. So folate is very important, and being able to utilize it is of the utmost importance. So folate also helps to maintain brain, nerve, and blood cells and DNA health. Naturally occurring folate is found in numerous foods, including leafy greens, legumes, and asparagus. The synthetic form of folic acid is commonly used in supplements and in fortified foods. So when you see folic acid, that is the synthetic form. It is a made-up form. It's added to foods to boost the folic acid in those foods. But it is far less beneficial compared to the folate that we find in whole foods. Genetic variation affects the availability and the requirements for folate. So depending on what gene variants you have, you may have a decrease in efficiency and the ability to utilize the folate you eat. So you may need a supplement form that is easy for your body to use based on your genes. And if you have a particular gene variant that causes you to be unable to utilize the synthetic form or the folic acid that gets added to a lot of processed foods, then you should avoid that form because it will definitely decrease your ability to utilize any folate that you're eating. Next, we go over here to vitamin B12. So vitamin B12 is an essential vitamin that works with folate and other B vitamins. It's a major player in maintaining the health of both brain and blood cells, as well as the synthesis of DNA. Vitamin B12 is exclusively available from animal products. So if you're a vegan or vegetarian, I really like to look at your diet and ensure you're getting enough B12 because most likely you're not. Some B12 can be made in your gut, but if you have the genetic variation that decreases the ability to transfer to make it in your gut, and then if you also have the decreased ability of a gene that transfers the B12 through the body, you may need to supplement. I also use these genes with B12 are involved to determine your risk of possible having impaired gut function, as these genes have a strong role in how well the environment of your gut is. Next, we'll go to vitamin C. Vitamin C is capable of excreting or neutralizing substances such as toxins and byproducts of normal cellular function that may cause rust-like damage, again, that oxidative stress within our cells. It also is a key nutrient in health of our collagen and blood vessels and assists in iron absorption and wound healing. Certain genes show us how effective we are at activating vitamin C or for use in these functions. So vitamin C has a strong, strong tie to your detoxification ability. So if you have gene variants that are causing you to not absorb and utilize vitamin C function efficiently, then you're also probably going to see high risk in your detox genes um, in that cellular system at the very beginning. So salt sensitivity is estimated to be present in 51% of individuals with high blood pressure. In individuals with salt sensitivity, blood pressure may increase when excess sodium is consumed. Although the mechanisms underlying salt sensitivity are complex, your genes can determine and help predict your response to salt. So if you are salt sensitive, that will be our first line of defense to resolve your high blood pressure. If you're not salt sensitive, then we don't need to worry about um, taking the salt out of your diet um, because it's not going to make a difference for your blood pressure. So then we need to look at other pathways to determine what is causing your higher blood pressure. Vitamin D is made in the skin when exposed to sunlight. So every time you go outside and you get that sun, that's why this sunlight is coming in here through the window. Your body turns that sunlight into vitamin D. So then it becomes activated in the liver and kidneys to produce vitamin D3, which vitamin D3 is the form of vitamin D which is able to switch multiple genes on that are responsible for maintenance of bone health and immunity, as well as the health of the hormone, glucose, and cardiovascular systems. So vitamin D does a lot of things. So it is very, very important in bone health. So again, there's a strong tie between if you have issues in making the vitamin D3 form of vitamin D that your body can use and bone health, you're going to have a high risk of decreased bone health and osteoporosis. So gene variants with vitamin D can definitely affect not only your bone health, but your immunity, hormone levels, again, your cardiovascular system, glucose, everything is all kind of tied back to vitamin D. And so if you're not able to make that form of vitamin D, then I really recommend that you get a blood test to see kind of where your vitamin D level's at. And if it's low, then we definitely need to supplement, and we need to keep supplementing till it becomes normal, because vitamin D is such a vital part of so many processes within our body. And finally, gluten, that's a popular term here, but celiac disease occurs when there is an immune reaction to gluten, which is the protein found in wheat, barley, and rye. In these cases, gluten can cause inflammation in the gut, which may damage the gut wall and potentially lead to complications resulting in deficiency conditions like anemia, osteoporosis, and thyroid problems. If certain gene variants are present, gluten may need to be removed from the diet completely. So basically, this is looking at certain genes that are linked to what, like I said, called celiac disease, which means you definitely need to remove that gluten out of your diet. Ooh, so the next page is what they put in a page called practitioner response page, and this is where I, as a practitioner, would put in my individual recommendations. I don't use this page. I have a complete separate report that I give to my clients based on what my recommendations are to them. Very in-depth, definitely more than a page. So I don't necessarily use that page. The next few pages are as a color-coded glossary of terms. So basically, it goes through all the different pathways that we just discussed, and then based on your risk, they're color-coded. So this will be different for every person, which colors show up, but basically it kind of goes over everything that I just talked about, what is involved in each of these individual pathways. After that, you have the color-coded genes list by pathway. And so again, this might be just too much information and nothing that you'd probably look at, but I use this with every patient. client that I have, because I go into all of this. This really gives me a summary of where I need to look, what things are cross affecting each other, and where I can really hone in and start to see patterns again and see where I can possibly make some recommendations that are going to be helpful. Um, so this particular report doesn't have gut health genes or sleep genes, but I think these are so important to look at. And so I pulled these particular genes out and look at them in relation to gut health and sleep, because everybody seems to either have sleep problems or some type of um, digestive concern. And so this kind of looking at these genes in particular sort of tells me whether there could be something there within the gut or within your sleep patterns that we could possibly work on. So one other thing that I want to talk about just real briefly is sometimes we need to go beyond the report. Sometimes things don't show up in the report um, as prominently as you would think they would, but I have one particular example of a client that had high cholesterol level, had been trying to get it to go down, trying all the things, wasn't going down, actually going up. And so on her genetic report, they didn't flag anything really in the cholesterol level um, or in her genes. According to the report, she was like a medium risk. It wasn't really, she wasn't a hyper producer. She wasn't a hyper absorber according to the normal genes. She was just kind of a medium risk, but her cholesterol was high and she was trying to get it lower. And so I really took a deep dive into all the cholesterol genes to try and see what I could find out. And so she had tried everything. She'd kind of gone to more of a vegan type diet. She was eating tons of plants, lots of nuts, seeds, um, avocados, using, all the good healthy things. But when I took a dive into her genes, I saw that she's a hyperabsorbable plant sterols, which means that she absorbs the sterols from plants at a much higher level than most people do, and it doesn't go down the positive pathway. It converts into cholesterol and becomes a hyperabsorber of cholesterol and pushes their cholesterol up. And so for most people, if they eat plant sterols, so if they do chia seeds, flax seeds, lots of nuts and seeds and avocados and all those right things, they push it to an anti-inflammatory type of pathway, boost your omega-3 levels, can essentially decrease your cholesterol if your genes are working appropriately. If your genes are not working appropriately, then your body is a hyperabsorber of all those plant sterols, then it's going to shoot your cholesterol up. And that was going on with her because she was eating lots of nuts and seeds and flax seeds and chia seeds and avocados and trying to do all the things that, quote unquote, she's been told to do. But in her particular case, she needed to cut back a little bit. So that doesn't mean that she can't have those foods. She can still eat those foods. She just needs how to really, really limit and reduce the amount that she is eating. And lo and behold, her cholesterol started to drop down because of that. So so we worked on adding fatty fish back in, because of those are the good omega-3s. So she's still getting that fat, that good healthy fat, but it wasn't pushing her cholesterol up. So anyway, point of the story is sometimes we need to go beyond just what is surface level on the report and really start to dive deep into any concerns or symptoms or problems that a client has. And that's what I'm here for. I'm here to take whatever your concerns, your goals, your needs are, look at the genetic report and really dive into it and try and figure out what we need to do to get you to your health and fitness goals. So that is looking at a quick dive into a genetic report. Again, reach out if you have any questions. If you want to work one-on-one, you can go to visit the website. You can email me at kendra@decodingnutritionanswers.com. Visit us on Facebook and Instagram. And if you have any questions, be sure to reach out. And that's it. Thanks, guys.